Dear friends, I would like once again to warmly welcome all of you and express gratitude and satisfaction that despite the peculiar context during the Russian presidency related to the COVID pandemic, the cooperation of BRICS nations has been evolving actively on all the key tracks: political, economic and humanitarian. More than 130 events have been held this year, and around 25 ministerial meetings among them. Many of these, unfortunately but naturally, given the context, were held online. Definitely, the goal of collective work of BRICS to handle the pandemic of infection, stepping up interaction of BRICS epidemiological services to protect the life and health of our people came to the fore. By the healthcare interaction topic is not new for BRICS. In this sense, we are in a more favorable situation than other countries. What I'm referring to, let me remind you that 5 years ago, the UFA declaration enshrined an accord to work in concert in order to counter the spread of infectious diseases, including, let me emphasize, the new type coronaviruses. As a follow-up to that accord, the BRICS nations have established the early warning mechanism for epidemics. So, in the COVID-19 case, we have had some groundwork. The BRICS participants have been able to quickly react and take specific measures to fight the pandemic. Let me emphasize that the Russian Direct Investment Fund has concluded agreements with the Indian and Brazilian partners to hold clinical trials of the Sputnik V vaccine, and with pharmacological companies in China and India, there have been accords to open production centers to produce the vaccine on their soil, not only for their domestic consumption, but for exporting to third countries. So we have Russian vaccines at hand there, and they're effective and safe. So the point is to start the mass production and scale that up. It is not an issue, but it is something for us to resolve, a goal to attain, and definitely we should join hands here in order to scale up the production of the vaccines. By the by, we have a second vaccine registered against the COVID-19, Epivac Corona, and a third one is in the pipeline. In their production and application, we're ready to interact with our BRICS partners, as I have said. It's also paramount to speed up the creation of the BRICS Vaccine R&D Center, which we agreed upon at the behest of the South African friends 2 years ago during the Johannesburg summit. Given the pandemic, each of our countries this year has faced the need to take emergency steps in order to support the national industries, finances and welfare. We restored our economies, bringing them back on growth track, sustainable growth track. This is what the BRICS strategy for economic partnership till 2025 prepared for the summit aims at. In this context, work of the new development bank is most relevant. The bank has reserved $10 billion worth of provisions to combat the pandemic. The overall investment portfolio of the bank exceeds $20 billion as of today. The alliance nations have been implementing 62 major projects. By the by, in close future, we'll open a regional office of bank in Moscow that will extend lending across all of the Eurasian space. I'd like to remind you that the BRICS nations have a specialist insurance tool in case of crisis developments at the financial markets. The contingent reserve arrangement with the total value of $100 billion. Interacting on credit and investment issues, it's important to rely on the interbank cooperation mechanism of BRICS that this year has coordinated rules rules and principles of responsible financing of development institutions. The BRICS countries have been intensifying interaction in STI. The network University of BRICS operates well this year. A mathematics contest was held among BRICS school children, and competitions among young scientists and innovators on R&D projects were held. We have intensive contacts forged between our academia and research centers. The thematic scope is impressive, ranging from research in oceanic and polar zones to astronomy and AI. Joint research has been held by the BRICS experts in energy sphere. We have prepared reports on the fuel and energy sector development in BRICS countries till 2040. We continue interaction in culture and humanitarian areas. In the virtual format, an online cinema festival was held, and we had agreed upon that, dear colleagues. For the first time, a meeting of sports ministers was held. It coordinated a memorandum of understanding in fitness and sports, and the dialogue between tourism agencies of our countries is well established. Dear colleagues, the situation in global and regional security remains complicated. International terrorism and drug trafficking are still formidable challenges. The cybercrime has been scaled up considerably. Dangerous destabilization is observed in the Middle East and South and North Africa. Armed standoffs continue in Libya and Yemen. A lot is to be done for the political settlement in Syria. Risks of aggravation of situation in Iraq, Lebanon, Afghanistan and the Gulf area linger on. Besides, the September saw an aggravation of the conflict in the Nagorno-Karabakh. The Russian side undertook most strenuous efforts to help stem the hostilities between the two nations friendly to us and urge them to find a compromise solution. As a result of our mediation, accords were reached on the 9th of November on the full ceasefire and the deployment of Russian peacekeepers in Nagorno-Karabakh. All that was enshrined in a trilateral declaration and statement signed by the Presidents of Russia, Azerbaijan and Prime Minister of Armenia. It's important that the above accords are observed and the hostilities have been ceased altogether and the situation is stabilizing. Thus, we have created the conditions for the long-lasting and full settlement of the crisis on an equal footing in the interests of the Azerbaijan and Armenian peoples. It is satisfactory that the BRICS countries maintain close cooperation on regional, international issues. We have prepared a program document, which is the BRICS counterterrorism strategy prepared for the summit. Anti-narcotics and anti-corruption cooperation of BRICS countries has been expanded, as well as in the sphere of the international cyber securities. We have been holding contacts of BRICS high representatives for security issues, as well as foreign ministers and our missions to the UN. In the year of the 75th anniversary, in the victory over Nazism in World War II, all the BRICS countries unanimously spoke in condemnation of the glorification of the Nazis and their disciples. Attempts to revisit the outcomes of the war and to revive the ideology of aggression and intolerance were condemned, and the participants of our alliance have been consistently speaking in favor of constructive relations with other nations, integration groups and international organizations, including in the BRICS Plus and BRICS outreach formats that prove their efficiency. To our common mind, such interaction should definitely be based on the principles for respecting of the UN Charter and basic rules of international law, as well as the sovereign equality of nations and no interference in domestic affairs and peaceful dispute resolution. Dear colleagues, in the view of the forthcoming G20 summit held by Saudi Arabia on the 21st and 22nd of November. Let me note that the approaches of BRICS countries on most items of that entity's agenda are close or coincide. That is true for reform of the key global institutions, the International Monetary Fund, the World Trade Organization, and the WHO, World Health Organization. BRICS directly contributed to shaping a G20 comprehensive package of measures to overcome the negative impacts of the pandemic, with the focus put on the recovery of the global value chains and the open nature of international trade. In this same vein, the Russian initiative on the green corridors has been promoted. Those corridors are free from wars and sanctions, mostly referring to the humanitarian supplies of food and medical items. In closing, dear colleagues, let me reiterate that the Russian Federation keeps prioritizing and will prioritize further development of cooperation with BRICS countries. We'll do our utmost to consolidate our positions at the international arena. I'd like to thank all of you for your friendly support and for the well-coordinated and fruitful interaction this year. Thank you so much.
Dear colleagues, let us proceed with our work. And now I give the floor to Prime Minister of the Indian Republic, Mr. Narendra Modi. Please, you have the floor.
Your Excellency President Putin, Your Excellency President Xi, Your Excellency President Ramaphosa, Your Excellency President Bolsonaro, I would like to begin by congratulating President Putin for successfully chairing BRICS. Thanks to your guidance and initiatives, BRICS was able to maintain its momentum even during the pandemic. Before I go further, I would like to wish President Ramaphosa my best wishes on the occasion of his birthday. Excellencies, the theme of this summit, BRICS Partnership for Global Stability, Shared Security, and Innovative Growth, is not only relevant but also far-sighted. Important geostrategic changes are taking place in the world. They will continue to have an impact on stability, security, and growth. And in all these three areas, BRICS will play an important role. Excellencies, this year, on the occasion of the 75th anniversary of the Second World War, we pay homage to the brave soldiers who lost their lives. During this war, more than 2.5 million brave soldiers from India as well were active on fronts such as Europe, Africa, Southeast Asia, on several fronts. This year is also the 75th anniversary of the establishment of the United Nations. As a founder member of the United Nations, India has always been a firm supporter of multilateralism. In Indian culture as well, the entire world is considered as one family. Thus, it is natural for us to support an institution like the United Nations. We have been firmly committed to the values of the UN. It is India that has lost the maximum number of brave soldiers in UN peacekeeping operations. However, today, the multilateral system is going through a crisis. Questions are being raised on the credibility and effectiveness of institutions of global governance. The main reason for this is that they have not changed appropriately with the times. They are based even today on the mindset and realities that existed 75 years ago. India believes that UN Security Council reforms are very necessary. On this subject, we expect the support of our BRICS partners. Apart from the United Nations, there are several other international institutions that are not functioning in accordance with present-day realities. Reforms are also required in institutions such as the WTO, the IMF, and the WHO. Excellencies, terrorism is the biggest problem the world is facing today. We will have to ensure that countries that support and help terrorists are also held guilty, and we need to fight this problem in a united manner. We are pleased that during the Russian chairmanship of BRICS, the BRICS counter-terrorism strategy has been finalized. This is an important achievement, and during its chairmanship, India will take this work forward. Excellencies, BRICS economies will play an important role in the post-COVID global recovery. BRICS countries represent over 42% of the global population, and our countries are among the key engines of global growth. There is a lot of scope for BRICS countries to increase their mutual trade. Our mutual institutions and systems, such as the BRICS Interbank Cooperation Mechanism, the new Development Bank, the Contingent Reserve Arrangement, and customs cooperation, etc., can also make our contribution to global recovery effective. In India, under our Self-Reliant India campaign, we have started a comprehensive reforms process.
This campaign is based on the conviction that a self-reliant and resilient India can be a force multiplier for the post-COVID global economy and can make a significant contribution to global value chains. We saw an example of this during COVID times also, when, due to the production capacity of Indian pharma industry, we could send necessary medicines to more than 150 countries. As I mentioned earlier also, our vaccine production and delivery capacity will, in this way, be useful in the interest of humanity. India and South Africa have proposed certain waivers in the intellectual property agreements with regard to COVID-19 vaccines, treatment, and testing. We hope that other BRICS countries will support this proposal. During its BRICS presidency, India will work on intensifying BRICS cooperation in the areas of digital health and traditional medicine. In this difficult year also, under the Russian presidency, several initiatives were taken to enhance people-to-people relations. For example, the BRICS Film Festival, the Young Diplomat Forum, and the Young Scientist Forum. For these, I would like to express my heartfelt appreciation to President Putin. Excellencies, BRICS completes 15 years in 2021. our Sherpas could make a report evaluating the various decisions taken by us in the past years. During our presidency in 2021, we will make efforts towards further strengthening intra-BRICS cooperation in all three pillars of BRICS. We will work towards strengthening intra-BRICS solidarity and develop a concrete institutionalized framework in order to achieve this objective. Once again, I would like to acknowledge and appreciate all the efforts made by President Putin. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks a lot. Your Excellency Prime Minister Modi, you said that in the Indian culture, the whole world is a common family. This is a fundamental idea, the basic idea that we should be guided by. But at the same time, you have outlined some threats that we face, namely terrorism. You said that this is one of the most relevant and topical issues of today. And I cannot but mention one phrase, there's always a black sheep in a family. Unfortunately, there are some people that fall out of the general context. They try to impose their own agenda. And this threat, just like the threat of COVID-19 pandemic, should always be within our sight. And the idea of India to make a digital medicine one of the key elements is quite an interesting and important area. And now I give the floor to the President of the People's Republic of China, Mr. Xi. You have the floor.
Your Excellency, President Putin, Your Excellency, Prime Minister Modi, Your Excellency, President Ramaphosa, Your Excellency, President Bolsonaro. I wish to begin by thanking President Putin and the Russian government for their thoughtful organization of this BRICS summit. Let me also take this opportunity to say happy birthday to President Ramaphosa. Around the world, COVID-19 is posing a grave threat to people's life and well-being. The global public health system is facing a severe test. Human society is going through the most serious pandemic in the past century. International trade and investment have shrunk considerably. Factors of uncertainty and instability are numerous. The world economy is witnessing the worst recession since the Great Depression in the 1930s. Unilateralism, protectionism, and acts of bullying are becoming rampant. And the deficit in governance, trust, development, and peace is widening instead of narrowing. Despite all this, we remain convinced that the theme of our times, peace and development, has not changed, and that the trend toward multipolarity and economic globalization cannot be turned around. We must keep people's welfare close to heart and pursue the vision of a community with a shared future for mankind. Through concrete actions, we will contribute our share to making the world a better place for everyone. First, we need to uphold multilateralism and safeguard peace and stability in our world. History teaches us that multilateralism, equity, and justice can keep war and conflict at bay, while unilateralism and power politics will inflate dispute and confrontation. We BRICS countries must hold high the banner of multilateralism. We must endeavor to safeguard the UN-centered international system and the international order underpinned by international law. We need to champion the concept of common, comprehensive, cooperative, and sustainable security. We need to oppose interference in others' internal affairs, as well as unilateral sanctions and long-arm jurisdiction. With concerted efforts, we will foster a peaceful and stable environment for development. Second, we need to enhance solidarity and coordination and come together to meet the COVID-19 challenge. The coronavirus is still causing havoc in many places. Securing a worldwide victory against the pandemic remains an uphill journey. What is important is that we put people's life and health first. It is important to step up international coordination and response and support WHO's crucial leadership role in this endeavor. As we speak, Chinese companies are working with their Russian and Brazilian partners on phase 3 clinical trials of vaccines. And we are prepared to have cooperation with South Africa and India as well. China has joined the COVAX facility. We will actively consider providing vaccines to BRICS countries where there is a need. To support the development of the BRICS Vaccine R&D Center, China has designated its own national center. I propose that we convene a BRICS symposium on traditional medicine to explore its role in coronavirus prevention and treatment. We need to overcome division with unity and pull the maximum global synergy to beat the virus. Third, we need to pursue openness and innovation and promote global economic recovery. To stabilize the economy while controlling the pandemic is a pressing task facing all countries. BRICS countries need to strengthen macroeconomic policy coordination, follow through on the initiative on facilitating cross-border flow of people and goods, and keep industrial and supply chains safe and open to better enable the resumption of business activities and economic recovery. The practice of using the pandemic to pursue deglobalization will end up hurting one's own interests and the common interests of all. We need to stand firm for building an open world economy and reject abuse of the national security concept for protectionist purposes. We need to strengthen cooperation on scientific and technological innovation to bring about high-quality development. China will work with other parties to flesh out the BRICS partnership on new industrial revolution at a faster pace. We will open in Xiamen, Fujian province, a BRICS partnership on new industrial revolution innovation center, and we welcome the active participation of fellow BRICS countries. Not long ago, China launched a global initiative on data security. We look forward to support from our fellow BRICS countries. Fourth, we need to prioritize people's livelihood and promote sustainable global development. All our efforts, from clearing the impact of COVID-19 and getting back to a normal life, to ending conflicts and humanitarian crises, ultimately depend on people-centered development. We need to call on the international community to place the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development at the heart of international development cooperation. Poverty eradication must be made a primary goal, and more resources must be channeled to poverty reduction, education, health, and infrastructure development. We need to support the UN's coordinating role, spread the fruits of development to more developing countries, and better address the needs of underprivileged groups. Fifth, we need to pursue green and low-carbon development and strive for harmony between man and nature. Global warming will not stop due to COVID-19. To tackle climate change, we must never relax our efforts. We need to implement the Paris Agreement in good faith, stick to the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities, and provide more help to developing countries. Recently, I announced at the UN China's initiative to scale up its nationally determined contributions. We will strive to peak carbon dioxide emissions by 2030 and achieve carbon neutrality by 2060. You can count on China to keep its promise. Colleagues, the recently concluded 5th plenary session of the 19th CPC Central Committee adopted recommendations for formulating China's 14th five-year plan. The plenum underscored that China will finish building a moderately prosperous society in all respects within the set time frame and will embark on a new journey next year toward fully building a modern socialist country. Based on the scientific analysis of the new stage of China's development, we will stay committed to the new development philosophy and actively foster a new development paradigm with domestic circulation as a mainstay and domestic and international circulations reinforcing each other. We will redouble efforts to expand domestic demand, deepen reform across the board, and promote innovation in science and technology to add impetus to China's economic growth. China will not shut its door of opening up. It will embrace the world with more open arms. China will be more vigorous in integrating with the global market and will take greater initiative in deepening international cooperation. In so doing, China will create more opportunities and space for global recovery and growth. All of us are indeed passengers in the same boat. When the wind is strong and the tides are high, we must be even more focused on our direction. We must keep pace and work as a team to break the waves and navigate steadily toward a brighter future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President Xi Jinping. First and foremost, China was the first to face the global pandemic. And China has thus shown to the world that one can successfully fight this pandemic. I would like to congratulate you, Mr. President, and all our Chinese friends on how you have managed to tackle the pandemic, and the result is indeed significant. It's clear and simple, and it is a great example for others. It is quite evident, and it is important for the BRICS countries not to close up, but rather to open up to each other when it comes to combating the pandemic. We're not only opening our scientific institutions and our borders for experts, we are also open for the promotion of vaccines. We are also open for manufacturing and exchange of medicines when it comes to combating the pandemic. And my colleague would agree that we support your initiative to hold a symposium that you mentioned. It is very important in current conditions. We also welcome the initiatives of China aimed at resolving global environmental problems. So thank you very much for your statement. Now I give the floor over to South Africa, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa.
Your Excellency President Vladimir Putin, Your Excellency Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Your Excellency President Xi Jinping, and Your Excellency President Jair Bolsonaro, ministers and officials, allow me to express my gratitude for the good wishes you have all extended to me on my birthday. I would also like to join other leaders in thanking and congratulating President Putin for the organization of this summit. We are indeed meeting at a time of global crisis, a time that calls for cooperation and dialogue between the nations of the world. The COVID-19 pandemic has damaged economies and devastated livelihoods across the world. The disease has put immense strain on public health systems, and significant resources have had to be redirected in a number of countries to containing the spread of the virus. Trade and investment has been disrupted, as has global supply and demand. For emerging economies already facing challenges of poverty, inequality, and underdevelopment, the pandemic has taken an even greater toll. As BRICS countries, we are called upon to unite, to work together, to demonstrate our collective will, and to provide leadership. This pandemic has taught us the necessity of strengthening health systems and being prepared for future emergencies of this nature and scale. It has shown us the importance of investing in science, technology, and innovation. Above all, it has taught us that international solidarity must pave the way to stability, security, and economic growth. In this regard, I wish to commend the Russian Federation for its leadership of BRICS during this challenging time. As South Africa and the African continent more broadly, we are grateful for the solidarity we have received from our BRICS partners, both through bilateral assistance and support for our continental response. While African leaders acted swiftly to contain the disease, it will take a long time for our economies to recover. We therefore endorse the call made by the UN Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, for a new global deal. This includes a more inclusive and balanced multilateral trading system, the reform of debt architecture, and greater access to affordable credit for developing countries. In the spirit of this new great global deal, we call on the international community and our BRICS partners to support a comprehensive stimulus package for African countries. This will include African countries and enable them to contain the disease and rebuild our damaged economies. The new development bank has a significant role to play in all this. To date, the bank has approved $4 billion of COVID-related emergency assistance projects, including 1 billion rand to South Africa, to support our health response and social relief measures. We welcome the indications from the new development bank that it aims to provide up to $10 billion in crisis-related assistance and to support economic recovery efforts. We further welcome the commitment by our health ministers to promote access to affordable, quality medicines and to make diagnostic tools available within BRICS countries. South Africa is participating in several research initiatives with continental and international partners, including the global effort to develop, manufacture, and to distribute a COVID-19 vaccine. The current experience demonstrates the need to accelerate the establishment of the BRICS Vaccine Research and Development Center in South Africa as agreed in the 2018 Johannesburg Declaration. We support the initiative to establish an integrated early warning system for preventing mass infectious diseases and believe this is a project that could be supported by the New Development Bank. Investing in science, technology, and innovation will not only prepare us for future health emergencies, but it will also enable us to confront other global challenges. Our ministers responsible for science and their funding agencies should be commended for the speed and efficiency with which they mobilize the capacities of our BRICS Science and Technology and Innovation Framework Program in their response to COVID-19. We should, to step up cooperation in this area, support the recovery effort. Since restoring our economies to good health is a goal that is common to all of us, it is timely that we are undertaking a review of the BRICS Strategy for Economic Partnership 2025. We remain committed to achieving sustainable development in BRICS and to the creation of opportunities for all. To fast-track our economic recovery, trade and investment ties between BRICS countries must be strengthened. The pandemic has exposed the vulnerability of an over-dependence on fragile global supply systems, even for basic foods and essential medical products. As African countries, it has shown us the need to build more resilient national and regional supply chains to enable the continent of Africa to respond more effectively to such crises in future. This week, South Africa will host its third investment conference. It is a platform to share with investors the progress that we have made in economic reforms and to showcase our country's potential as an investment destination. A central pillar of our national recovery is to diversify and upgrade our industrial capacity, supporting the wider processes of industrialization across the African continent. We call on our BRICS partners to ramp up investment in not just South Africa, but across the continent, particularly in the manufacturing sector. Investors from BRICS countries will realize considerable benefit by investing in Africa, particularly with the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area from January 2021. It is clear from this pandemic that we must strengthen multilateralism as the preferred means to advance our mutual interests. We reiterate our call for reform of the UN Security Council to ensure that it is more representative and inclusive in line with the principle of sovereign equality of all states. We need to ensure that trade rules take the interests of developing countries into account, particularly with respect to development through industrialization. Reform of the World Trade Organization is therefore key to rebalancing global trading systems and ensuring that its benefits are shared more equally. As we resolved in 2019 Brasilia Declaration, we must continue to collaborate through the BRICS partnership to address the problems of under-invoicing, which has a profound impact on our industrial development and employment goals. Since its founding, BRICS has stood as a testament to the power of solidarity. Our meeting today, in the midst of economic and social turmoil, is evidence that our partnership is strong and enduring. Working together, let us continue our onward march towards shared peace, security, prosperity, not only for our respective countries, but for all of humanity. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I would like to highlight several key points I got from your statement. First and foremost, thank you for supporting the establishment of the BRICS Vaccine Research and Development Center, because we do indeed need to have and develop vaccines. Now, we also need to support the establishment of the early warning system for various infectious diseases. I would also like to highlight your commitment to strengthening the system of various supply and demand chains. First and foremost, I'm talking about medicines and food products. This is indeed in line with what Russia suggested with its initiatives on green corridors. Our country suggests that we eliminate all kinds of barriers and sanctions in trade, at least during the pandemic, and at least with regard to those countries and the citizens of those countries who are in dire need of supplies of food and medicines and medical equipment while we are trying to combat this pandemic. I hope that the colleagues here today at this summit, at their own level and at the international level, would support these ideas. Thank you very much, President Xi Jinping, for your statements. Now I give the floor to President Jair Bolsonaro of Brazil.
Passo a palavra agora ao presidente brasileiro Jair Bolsonaro.
Sua Excelência,
Your Excellency, President Vladimir Putin, President of the Russian Federation, Your Excellency, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, the President of the South African Republic, whom I would like to greet for your birthday today, Your Excellency, Mr. Xi Jinping, the President of the People's Republic of China, Your Excellency, Mr. Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of the Republic of India, as regards all matters addressed here so far, we're fully in harmony and fully committed to fighting terrorism and in our pursuit of a safe, effective vaccine against COVID-19. Brazil, likewise, is working and seeking out to develop its own vaccine. We remain committed and do have actions in place regarding lowering carbon emissions. And a very unique matter to Brazil, considering the unjustifiable attacks we have recently suffered regarding our Amazonian region. The Brazilian Federal Police Service has now developed the use of DNA-type stable isotopes to allow traceability of Brazilian wood, and where it was cleared and also where it has been exported to. So we will soon disclose the actual names of the countries that have imported illegal wood from Brazil by means of that new technology. We have no sound support in the English booth anymore. We have no sound support in the English booth anymore. Não, me dá seu fone. Isso aqui, olha isso aqui. Pede para ele consertar isso aqui. Não tem som aqui. Você está ouvindo alguma coisa?
Não.
Não. Não, esse som está entrecortado. Não, on and off. Entrecortado. Esse aqui.
O meu também. Tá.
Probably there is an issue with interpretation in audio signal coming from Brazil. There is a technical issue. We'll wait for our Brazilian partners and friends to fix the interpretation from Portuguese into English. We'll wait just a second for them to fix that.
Agora voltou estourando. Deixa eu ver.
Aí, voltou.
Agora sim, agora está normal.
Ok, está restabelecido o sinal? Apenas uma coincidência, quando falei sobre a Amazônia da Madeira, o sinal caiu. Com toda certeza, apenas uma coincidência. Mas dizer aos senhores, amigos do BRICS, que a nossa Polícia Federal desenvolveu um método usando isótopo estável, tipo DNA, para permitir a localização da origem de madeira apreendida. Não apenas apreendida, mas o que é mais importante, a exportá-la também. Então estaremos revelando nos próximos dias países que têm importado madeira extraída de forma ilegal da Amazônia. E alguns desses países, os mais severos críticos ao meu governo tocante a essa região amazônica.
The Amazonian region. I believe that after this piece of news, which is in the interest of everyone in the world, I must say, I believe that the practice of illegal logging and importing of illegally logged wood will go down substantially by means of this new technology. It is an honor to be here with you all in this meeting. I regret the fact that we are not able to meet in person, but that will certainly, of course, not prevent the dialogue and a fruitful exchange of views and ideas among our countries. I would like to congratulate Russia for its pro-tempore presidency, which has held the group active or kept the group active and engaged in a number of actions in several areas of interest despite the challenges. Brazil is also very proud for having been the rotating presidency of BRICS last year, focused on intra-BRICS coordination with the purpose of achieving concrete results to the benefit of our populations. It is our duty to foster the well-being and promote the prosperity of our peoples, especially given the economic, social, and health challenges we currently face. Our governments are held accountable, and rightly so, for the proper use of human and financial resources, which have become even more scarce as a result of the pandemic. As leaders, we should be able to set priorities and show our citizens with a sense of respect and transparency that the work being conducted by the BRICS is a driving force for income, development, growth, prosperity of our peoples. The first BRICS summit was held amidst one of the most serious crises in history. In that context, in the past, the strength of emerging economies proved key for the recovery of the international economy. Again, in 2020, the world faces a crisis of very challenging nature. Once again, BRICS countries can play a key role as part of the overall efforts to overcome COVID-19 and ensure proper resumption of the economy. The growth or the path towards economic growth depends on focused cooperation, focusing mutual benefits, and of course with a sense of respect towards national sovereignty. In this respect, BRICS encompasses a wide array of different sectors and initiatives covered by our activity. Our cooperation should encourage the ability to create and to start new businesses. I'm sure that there is room for us to implement more trade promotion measures among our countries by fostering greater interaction among the private sectors of our countries. We currently experience a particularly difficult episode as a result of the economic, social, and public health effects of COVID-19. From the very beginning of the pandemic, I warned that public health and the economy should be treated or addressed at the same time with the very same sense of responsibility. No country can face up to this outstanding, exceptional situation without paying attention to the vital signs of the economy. And that is how we have acted in Brazil. From the very beginning, I also criticized the politicization of the virus and the supposed mastery of knowledge by the WHO. The WHO does need reforms urgently. We must highlight that the crisis has shown that nations are central to the solutions that currently strike the world. We must acknowledge the fact that it was not international organizations that have overcome challenges, but rather the actual coordination among our countries have helped us overcome the current challenge. In Brazil, the national institutions and the dedicated medical professionals, nursing, and pharmaceutical professionals are the ones who lived up to the challenge to fight the virus. Dear leaders, the health crisis has also brought forth major challenges to international stability. Brazil will strive to ensure that in a post-COVID world, we will have an international system anchored on freedom, transparency, and security. For these principles to materialize, we must absolutely advocate democracy while respecting the sovereign prerogatives of all countries. For us to have a truly integrated and active international community, we must reform the international institutions such as the WHO and the WTO. The reform of the WTO is key to ensure a global economic recovery. We must prioritize proposals to reduce subsidies to agricultural goods with the same emphasis that certain countries use to try to promote the trade in industrial goods. There is no better example of the need to democratize international governance than the proposed reform of the United Nations Security Council. Just as BRICS reaches consensus and voices its shared views on several topics, likewise, we must ensure that BRICS will coordinate to support the legitimate aspirations of Brazil, India, and South Africa to a permanent seat at the UN Security Council. With this important step forward, I'm sure that intra-BRICS coordination and cooperation will be even further strengthened. If we have been able to uphold the BRICS agenda in 2020, that is due to the solid nature of our dialogue and for the very resolute efforts undertaken by the Russian pro-tempore presidency. And congratulations once again, Russia. To my friend, Prime Minister Modi in India, I can assure that you will receive from Brazil the same support we have offered Russia this year. And I wish India a very successful presidency at BRICS and will lead to an even more prosperous future to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. President. I want to single out several of the items that you have touched upon. I think they are of utmost importance. These are priorities. First of all, your point that the issues of the pandemic handling must be depoliticized. I am in full agreement with you, and I'm sure that all the colleagues are in agreement as well. We will work together to reform global international institutions. And here, in this respect, I think we should reconcile our positions. By and large, we're in agreement with you. It's about details, but, you know, the details need further elaboration, and we'll do that together with you, with all of you. So it is of importance for us within the alliance to reach consensus on that. I'm sure that this work will have positive outcomes, given the fact that the role of Brazil, India, and South Africa has been on the rise, and I hope that the cooperation within our alliance will promote and bolster the clout and influence of your countries, including Brazil, at the international arena, and our alliance will only benefit because of that. And I'd like to emphasize your call about what is important for Russia and Brazil, likewise. The capability to absorb the CO2 by forests. The forests of Brazil in the Amazon region and our forests, without a doubt, are the lungs of this planet. And like Brazil, we believe that this must be taken into account while reckoning every nation's contribution to the global economic, environmental issues fight. Thank you for your intervention, dear colleagues. Once again, I'd like to express the gratitude to all the leaders of the BRICS nations for substantive interventions and the useful ideas and proposals that you have voiced in order to expand interaction between BRICS 5 and consolidate our international positions. We assume that the cooperation of BRICS countries must most importantly be aimed at creating the context for progressive development of our nations and raising the living standards and well-being of our people. It should bring tangible benefits to our people. It's important to be able to work in concert in this manner. Now I suggest we should listen to the representatives who were in charge of the specific work streams during Russia's presidency. First of all, let me give the floor to the Secretary of the National Security Council of the Russian Federation, Mr. Patrushev, that was in charge of the BRICS interaction on security. The floor is yours. Sir. Thank you, Your Excellency, President Vladimir Putin, Your Excellency, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Your Excellency, President Xi Jinping, Your Excellency, President Cyril Ramaphosa, Your Excellency, President Jair Bolsonaro. I'd like to thank you at the outset to be able to present my report on the main outcomes of the 10th meeting of High Representatives for Security Issues of the BRICS countries that was held on the 17th of September. We also worked in the teleconference mode. In the current context, additional opportunities are opening to further promote the most relevant approaches towards a free and fair, polycentric, multipolar system of international relations built upon the underlying principles as peaceful coexistence of states, non-interference into internal affairs. The priority attained to political and diplomatic means of resolving controversies, relying on the existing international legal instruments. Given the above mentioned, the participants of the meeting confirmed the concurrence of approaches of BRICS 5 representatives towards the future world order. Special heed was paid to the issue of countering terrorism. One of the main practical outcomes of the Russian presidency in BRICS was the finalization of the draft counter-terrorism strategy of BRICS that today submitted for your approval, Excellencies. The High Representatives for Security Issues also noted that it is important to keep working in concert in the working group of BRICS on counter-terror. It was agreed to continue constructive dialogue within 5 relevant subgroups in order to step up law enforcement potential and capability to counter the foreign terrorist fighters phenomenon, to fight internet to the criminal ends, to prevent the radicalization and to counter terrorism financing. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we had substantive discussions of the medical and biological issues. As a follow-up on the accords reached in the UFA summit in 2015, it was agreed by us to take additional efforts in order to strengthen the BRICS 5 potential in healthcare and better resilience of our nations before biological security risks. To these ends, the High Representatives for Security Issues have agreed to look in detail into the possibility of resuming the practice of 5-way expert consultations on that matter. We are convinced that in the context of the global crisis that is aggravated by the COVID-19 pandemic and the risk of emergence of new diseases, holding the relevant agencies' talks would be in the interest of all the BRICS nations. Another important matter under our discussion during the 17th of September meeting was the problem of ensuring international cybersecurity. All the participants of the meeting emphasized the growing nature of the threats emanating from the digital and cyberspace. More and more cases of the use of info technologies to pursue the propaganda of terrorism were noted and to implement the color revolution scenario. Also, the countries agreed to beef up work to shape the proper legal framework in this domain. It has been decided to entrust the BRICS Working Group on Security in ICT to design an action plan to pursue cooperation inter alia, taking into account the accords reached at our previous BRICS summits. This instrument would include specific measures and a list of the activities, consolidated activities by BRICS at the international arena and most importantly at the UN platform. We expect that during the Indian presidency in the 2021, we will be able to start the practical implementation of these accords so that we could further consolidate the BRICS potential and capability in security. Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you, Mr. Patrushev. I'd like to thank you and all your colleagues who have been looking into these important matters of countering terrorism and the pandemic of COVID and fighting the drug trafficking and cyber crime. Now let me yield to the President of the New Development Bank, Markus Troiho, that will present a report on the outcomes of the bank's work in 2020 and the priorities for the next year. Thank you.
Your Excellency President Vladimir Putin, Your Excellency Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Your Excellency President Xi Jinping, Your Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, Your Excellency President Jair Bolsonaro. I am honored to report to you for the first time as President of the New Development Bank. Let me start by thanking the Russian BRICS presidency and all BRICS countries for the great support provided to the NDB. And of course, join everyone in saying happy birthday to President Ramaphosa. Leaders, your vision and leadership have allowed the NDB to make remarkable progress since its foundation in 2015. In mere 5 years, we've accomplished what peer institutions took decades to achieve. We're talking about 65 projects totaling $21 billion. By the end of this year, we expect approvals to reach $26 billion. In line with the guidance you provided during last year's summit in Brasilia, we are better balancing our portfolio across member countries. Additionally, the private sector will represent an increasing share of our operations. We are there to support key infrastructure projects in the BRICS: logistics, urban development, water and sanitation, energy. Core development needs are all within our scope. When it comes to COVID, the NDB is rising up to the occasion. We are working in a proactive and agile manner. $10 billion is our committed support through an emergency response program. The first $5 billion directed to finance health and social relief. The second $5 billion contribute to boosting economic recovery, especially through the creation of jobs that comes from infrastructure investment and support for small and medium-sized enterprise. In this connection, we realize the NDB's outreach is made more effective by the work of our regional offices. This has been the experience in the Americas office in Brazil and the Africa Center in South Africa. They are soon to be followed by the Eurasian Center in Moscow, recently ratified by the Russian Parliament, as well as our Indian regional office. Excellencies, there is an immense infrastructure gap, as we all know, to be bridged in our countries. The NDB is working with all the BRICS to set up a digital platform for infrastructure investment, and this initiative can produce many benefits. Crowding in infrastructure investment is an essential objective in today's world. A digital platform can help us shorten the distance between potential investors and attractive infrastructure opportunities in the BRICS. In a challenging year such as this one, we have successfully tapped international markets. The NDB issued its inaugural dollar bonds that are contributing to fund our emergency response. The NDB enjoys today the highest credit rating assigned to any multilateral bank established solely by emerging economies. We're committed to providing competitive lending rates, and our lean organizational structure and efficient use of resources help us achieve those goals. Excellencies, since taking office in July, we have made important strides forward in the membership expansion of our bank. Negotiations are well underway. Potential members demonstrate a strong interest in joining the new development bank, and I am confident we will be able to announce new members very soon. Now, Excellencies, a few words on our vision going forward. We have 5 priorities for the next 5 years. 1, we want to position the NDB as a premier development bank for emerging economies, and we will play a leading role in the conversation on what development policy means in the 21st century. 2, we will make progress in membership expansion, and we will do so in a gradual and responsible way. 3, we will increase the complexity and outreach of our operations. This is key as the very concept of infrastructure evolves to encompass both traditional challenges and those presented by the economy 4.0. 4, as human talent rises to be the indispensable factor of production, the NDB must become talent intensive, an institution that's ready to cope with what the future has in store. 5, and finally, we will strengthen our role as a platform for international cooperation, one in which member countries can come together and work constructively on issues of their shared interest. Thank you very much.
Thank you, distinguished Mr. Troija. I believe that my colleagues will agree with me. Indeed, we see the expansion of the investment activities of the bank. You have established the processes of loaning and investment. You are increasing the long-term investment to the BRICS companies. Indeed, that is your credit and the credit of all your colleagues and team. And now I'd like to give the floor to the BRICS Business Council, President of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Mr. Katurin.
уважаемый Владимир Владимирович, уважаемые главы государств и правительств БРИКС, уважаемые коллеги. Деловой совет БРИКС присоединяется к поздравлениям господина Рамафозы с днем рождения. Наши наилучшие пожелания. Деловой совет БРИКС, несмотря на все вызовы, с которыми мы столкнулись в этом году, используя современные средства коммуникации, продолжил активную работу по всем направлениям своей деятельности. С учетом текущей макроэкономической ситуации,
Given the current macroeconomic situation and the trends of the national economies of the BRICS Council, the Business Council focused its major effort on seeking efficient solutions to mitigate negative social and economic repercussions of the pandemic, to unlock new potential for trade, economic and investment cooperation within BRICS. As we replied to the new challenges, we saw new opportunities for efficient work. Thanks to cutting-edge technologies and with active participation of all parts of the Business Council, we have expanded the horizons of the annual business forum of BRICS, and we hosted for the first time the so-called BRICS Business Marathon. The main topic of this marathon was business partnership of BRICS countries' common vision of sustainable inclusive development. In the course of 4 days, the participants of the forum have been working on 9 panel sessions that covered virtually all areas of business cooperation within BRICS. The forum was attended by some 90 speakers, state officials, representatives of financial institutions, business community, and public organizations of all the association countries. The major outcomes and proposals of the working groups of the Business Council set the framework for the annual report. And I can show it to you. This is the major outcome of our work over this year, and in line with the established procedure, we present it for your consideration. The Business Council report includes 36 recommendations on further development of cooperation on the following major tracks: industry, infrastructure, financial services, agriculture, digital economy, energy and green economy, aviation, eliminating administrative barriers, staff training. Against the pandemic backdrop, this year showcased enormous potential for our cooperation in digital technologies. That is why we ask in our recommendations that BRICS leaders focus and prioritize digital transformation in critical fields such as healthcare, education, state governance, and industrial production, as well as to the development and connectivity of a credible digital infrastructure, increasing digital literacy of the population, strengthening cooperation in exchange of IT technologies, the development of interaction on cybersecurity, and protection of personal data. Yet another important condition to unlock the economic potential within BRICS is to enhance financial support mechanisms, ensuring that the relevant financial solutions are targeted and accessible. Of special importance in this regard is further increased efforts of the new development bank that has just briefed us. This year, we drafted and included in the report a number of proposals that would contribute to that, according to our view. Namely, that is providing loans in national currency, increasing the share of non-sovereign operations, including in private sector, and creating financial tools to support green projects in the BRICS countries, launch programs supporting SMEs' participation in projects funded by the bank. As never before, the agenda of the Business Council focused on social responsibility of business, developing interaction in healthcare, increasing public-private partnership, and attracting additional investment in this area. We're happy to see the launch of the BRICS Women's Business Alliance. Its key areas of work include social responsibility and partnership issues, family business, women employment, and public health. Distinguished Mr. President Putin, distinguished heads of state and government of BRICS, today, when we witness our ordinary way of life and business relations change, the majority of international associations worldwide face a serious stress test. Judging by the experience of the Business Council's work this year, we can state with confidence all the crisis situations notwithstanding, business communities of BRICS countries seek to work jointly to build and deepen business contacts to seek new drivers of economic growth for the benefit of our people, to raise living standards and well-being of our citizens. In conclusion, let me assure you, distinguished Mr. President Putin, distinguished heads of state and government of BRICS, that the BRICS Business Council will further contribute by all means to the development and unlocking of the economic cooperation potential, guided by the principles of continuity, openness, mutual trust and respect, and account for each other's interests. I thank you for your attention. Thank you, Mr. Katirin. I would like to note that we understand full well, and we have repeatedly highlighted this today, that against the current backdrop in the pandemic context, it is of crucial importance to have this business interaction track. And in this regard, the BRICS Business Council is working quite actively to seek best solutions to overcome emerging social and economic problems as well as political problems, because at the end of the day, how people feel and how we cope with the issues related to livelihoods of our families, a lot depends on these matters. Basically, that is the key issue. Thanks a lot. And now I'd like to give the floor to the President of the Interbank Cooperation of BRICS, head of Nashekonom of Russia, Mr. Shuvalov. Thank you, President Putin, dear heads of state and government. The BRICS Interbank Cooperation Mechanism celebrates its 10th anniversary, and presenting the outcome of our joint work to the BRICS heads of state is a huge privilege to me. This year, the mechanism had a special role to play. China Development Bank, the Brazilian Development Bank, Export-Import Bank of India, the Development Bank of Southern Africa, Nashekonom Bank, as well as the New Development Bank became the backbone of national governments as they mitigated the pandemic. Our organizations are a serious asset in bolstering trade and economic interaction and shaping a new growth model. In this regard, the development banks became a genuine lifeline for many companies in BRICS. In Russia, WEB has accounted for 23.5% of the overall state anti-crisis assistance, and as a result, it saved almost 5 million jobs and the livelihoods of their families. Through National Development Bank, it accounted for 11.5% of anti-crisis assistance, and Chinese Development Bank accounted for 9.5% of anti-crisis assistance. The main measures included support to public health systems, SMEs, and issuing anti-crisis bonds. As a result, thanks to these measures, in 2021, BRICS countries may enjoy an average growth of 6.7%, becoming the driving force of the global economy. The overall number of surety bonds issued by WEB to commercial banks in Russia for potential zero interest or reduced interest loans to businessmen totaled almost 500 billion rubles. Yesterday, we completed our chairmanship by hosting the financial forum of the BRICS Interbank Cooperation Mechanism. It resulted in the adoption of 8 principles of responsible financing that was developed on the basis of best practices of World Bank, the UN, and the OECD. It includes a commitment to screen environmental, social, and economic risks of projects for local communities, contribute to the development of inclusive and sustainable economic models, achieve broadest transparency of projects, and protecting confidentiality. Let me also highlight specifically the New Development Bank. President Putin and other heads of state and government stated that we're building a new model of interbank cooperation, and this year and next year it plans to invest $10 billion, and it has already invested $4 billion. We believe that its work is promising and useful, and we are ready to cooperate on all tracks. One of the main topics of the BRICS ICM this year was the development of green financing. The world is witnessing an emerging consensus that the post-crisis rebuilding shall be based on the principles of sustainable development. WEB has published the first draft recommendations on green financing and national taxonomy of green projects that is compatible with European and Chinese systems in this area. The second important track is public-private partnership. Last year we joined an agreement on cooperation on attracting private investment in infrastructure projects within the ICM. We believe that common principles of solid preparation and structuring of PPP projects will allow us to find common approaches to their assessment and determining prospects for the future. During the current crisis, it became obvious that our way of life is fragile and can be easily lost. The key role in this area should be played by investments in human capital and raising the living standards throughout BRICS. WEB intends to achieve this goal by funding the development of urban economy infrastructure, renovating old industrial centers and public transport systems. Other institutes of BRICS are also moving in this direction. Although the year 2020 became a year of serious tests, we have managed to achieve the goals that we have set for ourselves. I believe that our cooperation has been successful, and this will be the case in the future. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Mr. Chevalp. I would like to highlight the memorandum on the principles of responsible financing that was signed yesterday. It will help and facilitate the implementation of joint projects within BRICS, and it will also allow for raising trade and investment. Mr. Katurin has already mentioned the work of the BRICS Women's Business Alliance, and I would like to give the floor to the President.
Mr. Putin, Prime Minister Modi, President Xi Jinping, President Ramaphosa, President Bolsonaro. In the year of Russian chairmanship in BRICS, the BRICS Women Business Alliance was launched. Let me briefly tell you about what we have managed to accomplish and what we expect to achieve in future. The presentation of the project was made by the Russian side back in 2017 at the first International Women's Congress of the Shanghai Cooperation and the BRICS member states in Novosibirsk, and then at the 9th Summit of BRICS in Xiamen in China. I would like to thank you, Mr. President, for supporting this initiative. For me, it is an honor to be the head of the Russian part of the Women Business Alliance, and a great responsibility to speak on behalf of this alliance. The idea to create a separate mechanism for the support of female entrepreneurs in BRICS was born as a result of the desire to help women develop their own business and go international. Our women have great experience when it comes to business activities and proven themselves to be as reliable and responsible. Now, having achieved economic maturity, our women business wants to have fruitful cooperation on the international arena and thus increase trade turnover between BRICS countries. All over the globe, women work in social sphere. More than half of those working in tourism are women. Women also comprise 70% of healthcare workers and social services workers, and now they are at the forefront of fighting the coronavirus infection. So today, the contribution of women into economic recovery is as relevant as ever. Women entrepreneurs from BRICS countries are usually owners of micro, small and medium-sized businesses. At the same time, the mechanisms for business cooperation within the group are targeted towards large-cap businesses. In July of this year, we had the first meeting of the alliance and then online meetings, And during the last meetings, we have adopted the text of the constitutive declaration. The work of our mechanism is based on the function of the Business Council. We have selected 5 representatives of business from each country. They have passed through all of the stages of business development. They have overcome the main barriers, and now they want to go international. The alliance is going to have working groups and national secretariats. We have designed plans of actions and KPIs for upcoming work. We have decided to focus on online education and digital literacy, as well as export with the usage of online trade, healthcare, food security and environmental security, as well as creative industries and tourism. We have taken into account the social and economic agenda in the world and business interests of the WBA. They would only add to the areas of activities of the Business Council. For example, Russia and China support the organization of the international competitions for women projects which seek to create more women entrepreneurs within the BRICS countries. Another initiative is the creation of the BRICS School of Digital Literacy. Chinese colleagues offer us to use their experience to expand access of women to digital services and e-commerce. India suggested we create the BRICS WBA's venture fund aimed at financing female startup companies. Brazilian colleagues want to develop programs to expand access to financial and digital services for young entrepreneurs. South African partners are interested in developing joint projects in food security as well as ensuring equal access to sustainable infrastructure. These are just some of the ideas that we have discussed, and we will present all those projects in future. We hope that the alliance will help 45 million women heads of companies, of small companies and medium-sized companies, to be able to work internationally. Russian chairmanship in BRICS has laid the foundation for the WBA. However, a lot remains to be done. We are going to create a global platform to promote female-owned businesses within BRICS and beyond BRICS. In conclusion, I would like to say that while creating the alliance, we have not been able to do without our men. So, on behalf of all the 25 representatives of business in the alliance, I would like to express my deep gratitude. Together, we will work for economic prosperity for future generations. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Madam Nesterenko. I guess my colleagues would agree that the creation of the WBA is an important development. In our country, women have made major contributions into economic development in key areas. For example, you've just mentioned that women comprise 70% of all the workers in healthcare and social sectors, and that is highly important today. I believe that women are going to play an important role when it comes to revitalizing business activities within BRICS, when it comes to expanding and empowering women economically, as well as creating new opportunities for them. I believe that the Women Business Alliance would play a major role in these processes. Thank you very much. Now I would like to give the floor to my colleagues. You can make your comments on the statements you have just heard. We will start, as we did in the beginning, with the Prime Minister of India. Prime Minister, over to you, please, for your comments and commentaries with regards to the statements you have heard from our colleagues.
Excellencies, thank you for the briefing by various institutions of BRICS. I would like to thank Mr. Patrushev for his review of the 10th meeting of the BRICS National Security Advisors. As I had mentioned in the beginning also, the finalization of the BRICS counter-terrorism strategy is an important achievement in itself. I suggest that our NSAs discuss regarding a counter-terrorism action plan. I would also like to thank pro tempore chair of the BRICS Business Council, Mr. Sergei Katrin. The main responsibility of economic integration between us will be only in the hands of the private sector. I suggest that the BRICS Business Council prepare a concrete plan to steer our mutual trade to the $500 billion target. I congratulate Mr. Marcos Trojo for taking over as president of the new development bank. NDB's financing support will be even more useful in the context of COVID. I am pleased that NDB has opened an office in Russia, and I hope that next year you will start your regional office in India. I congratulate Mr. Igor Shivavalov for his work in the BRICS Interbank Cooperation Mechanism. It is a matter of great pleasure that there has been an agreement over principles for responsible financing between our development banks. Formation of the BRICS Women's Business Alliance was a special priority of President Putin, and this vision of his is now successful. I thank the chairperson, Ms. Anna Nesterova, of the Alliance for her report. We in India are making several efforts to encourage women entrepreneurship. I hope that by way of this alliance, intra-BRICS cooperation in this area will be enhanced. Once again, I thank each one of you, especially our host, President Putin. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Prime Minister, I give the floor over to the President of China, Xi Jinping. Over to you.
Dear colleagues, we've had in-depth discussions on the international situation and BRICS cooperation, and heard presentations from the NSA meeting and other BRICS mechanisms, as well as from the NDB. Our 5 countries, under the Russian chairmanship and the able leadership of President Putin, have overcome the negative impact of COVID-19. And we have held a series of activities on economic and financial cooperation, political and security matters, and cultural and people-to-people exchange. It's very heartening to see that we have kept the strong momentum of BRICS cooperation. Going forward, we need to strengthen BRICS solidarity and aim for stronger and deeper cooperation in all sectors. In this context, let me suggest a few ideas. First, deepening economic cooperation and trade. Under the Russian chairmanship, we have updated the strategy on BRICS economic partnership. It provides strategic direction for our future cooperation. Let us implement it fully and recalibrate our efforts on trade and investment facilitation, infrastructure connectivity, and poverty reduction to achieve the maximum impact. These areas are critical to our shared prosperity. The NDB has contributed to economic and social development in our 5 countries, and also to our battle against the coronavirus. We need to speed up consultation on its enlargement. A bigger and stronger NDB can bolster the development of BRICS countries and our participation in global economic governance. Interbank cooperation is an important ingredient of our economic ties. China supports stronger collaboration between the development financial institutions of our 5 countries. Local currency settlement and project financing are a promising area that will support the long-term development of BRICS banks and countries, rather. Under Russia's stewardship, the BRICS Energy Research Cooperation Platform is now up and running. There is much that it can do in terms of policy communication, technical exchange, and joint research. It could potentially contribute to our energy security and stability. Second, strengthening political and security cooperation. We need to focus more on strategic cooperation, maintain communication on major international issues in the UN and other venues. We also need to improve coordination through meetings between our foreign ministers, our NSAs, and our permanent missions in New York. China commends Russia for its leadership in obtaining consensus on the BRICS counterterrorism strategy. It demonstrates our strong resolve to tackle terrorism and safeguard international and regional security. It also represents our positive contribution to the global fight against terrorism. And third, expanding cultural and people-to-people exchanges. We need to create more signature projects of cultural exchange, drawing on the great diversity of our cultures. We must involve more of our people in BRICS events, engage them deeper, and broaden the appeal to them. Over the past year, the BRICS Business Council has made new strides, producing many results in economic and trade cooperation and contributing to the deepening of friendship among our 5 nations. Thanks to Russia's initiative, we have established the BRICS Women Business Alliance this year, which is a useful addition to BRICS cooperation. China will actively support its activities and proposes the holding of a BRICS Women Innovation Competition. It may interest you to know that China will host a symposium on governance and a forum on people-to-people exchange via video conferencing. We look forward to your strong support and participation. I want to thank you, President Putin, once again for your successful stewardship of this summit. And we look forward to the Indian chairmanship next year, under which BRICS cooperation will make new strides. China will continue to play a constructive role in that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for your comments and for your proposals. Now I give the floor to the President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa. Over to you, Mr. Ramaphosa.
Your Excellencies, allow me to express my appreciation for all the reports that were presented here today by our colleagues. They were really well crafted and they had a great deal of good substance. So we thank our colleagues for devoting time and energy to preparing those wonderful reports that have really, really good proposals that will take our BRICS forward. I want to commend the national security advisors, as led by Russia, for taking cooperation on counterterrorism within the BRICS group to the next level. South Africa believes the BRICS counterterrorism strategy should complement and add value to existing strategies, such as the UN Global Counterterrorism Strategy and regional and national strategies. This is a much, much needed initiative, and we'd like to thank our colleagues for coming up with a wonderful strategy like this. The COVID-19 pandemic has reminded us of the need to strengthen our cooperation in the secure use of cyberspace, as there has been a disturbing increase in the number of cyber attacks on critical infrastructure, including health facilities. South Africa welcomes Russia's proposal for a new BRICS mechanism to promote a common approach in the field of biological security. We welcome the report from the BRICS Business Council. It is essential that in the wake of COVID-19, we intensify private sector cooperation. We should integrate the African continent into our plans for recovery, particularly with the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. As all 5 BRICS countries are active in Africa, the Business Council can help to align our initiatives. We welcome the response of the new Development Bank to the COVID-19 pandemic, which included the provision of $1 billion to assist South Africa in its health response and social relief measures. South Africa stands ready to support the bank in its enlargement, particularly in Africa, where the NDB can help to address the continent's large infrastructure financing gap. I commend the BRICS Interbank Cooperation Mechanism for their continued efforts to strengthen cooperation. This collaboration will be invaluable as we respond to the devastation caused by the pandemic and will enhance the global partnership for sustainable development. The achievement of economic and social progress in our countries requires greater focus on the empowerment of women. We therefore welcome the launch of the BRICS Women's Business Alliance. As BRICS members, we need to work together through this alliance and through the BRICS Business Council to promote financial inclusion, preferential procurement, and preferential trade agreements for women. We believe strongly that this is one of the better ways to empower the women of our respective countries. The reports we have received today demonstrate once again that the BRICS grouping is a valuable platform for effective cooperation amongst our respective countries with tangible outcomes. Even during a pandemic like this, we have proven under the leadership of Russia that BRICS is a sustainable organization that can still move into the future. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for your valuable assessments and for your ideas to organize our joint work. And now I give the floor over to Jair Bolsonaro, Brazil.
Senhor presidente Jair Bolsonaro, pelo Brasil. This has indeed been a very fruitful and productive meeting, ladies and gentlemen, just as every other meeting I have attended, and I'm extremely proud to be a member of this group of countries. Ladies and gentlemen, the new development bank, the NDB, currently chaired by a Brazilian who held a high-profile position in my administration, has reflected a substantial part of our group's aspirations regarding financial cooperation and international economic governance. The bank's expansion process is a key part of our commitment to a new international financial architecture. We congratulate the NDB for its partnership with the Brazilian government to fight the effects of the pandemic on the income of Brazilians. We also welcome the contribution to infrastructure projects and sustainable development projects, particularly in the fields of renewable energy, transportation, urban mobility, water, and basic sanitation. The meeting of national security advisors is a relevant instrument to help share information on potential threats to our sovereignty, to our security and stability of our countries. Brazil also cherishes the BRICS counter-terrorism strategy. Its implementation will certainly help consolidate a region free of this type of threat. We know that terrorism goes hand in hand with drug trafficking in South America as well as in other geographies of the world. The ongoing efforts of the BRICS Business Council, even amidst a public health crisis, has reflected the interests of our business communities to jointly overcome the current worldwide crisis. The council issued by the Business Council on the pandemic has confirmed the concern about upholding the international supply chains and support to small and medium enterprises, among other measures. I reaffirm to members of the BRICS Business Council and to the Brazilian business community my firm commitment to structural reforms that will ensure a better business environment with the resulting increase in productivity and private investment flows. The active work of the BRICS Women's Alliance is also reason for us to celebrate. We need the women's perspective and more opportunities for women's entrepreneurship in our group. I truly hope that the work of the Women's Business Alliance as an add-on to the BRICS Business Council will open up new prospects for greater cooperation among our private sectors. Likewise, may I congratulate the interbanking cooperation mechanism for its efforts to foster greater coordination among the BRICS development banks. The initiative has proved an important platform to expand mutual knowledge and greater contact among financial institutions. Attracting private investments is a common feature in our strategies for development and must remain central to the mechanism's work and agenda. Once again, I thank the Russian Federation for its leadership in all areas mentioned in today's working session. Once again, may I thank Russia for its key leadership in the BRICS presidency in all areas mentioned in this session. Likewise, I wish India great success as our new rotating presidency. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Bolsonaro. It hasn't been easy for all of us to work during this year, and you personally have faced this infection. You were courageous enough to go through this ordeal. I want to wish you all the best and good health. We all saw how difficult it was for you, given all the circumstances, but you demonstrated the best male properties and bravery and will, strong will, and definitely you resolved all the issues basing on the interests of your nation and your country, setting aside your own health, which is a role model for all of us of the proper attitude towards one's professional debt in the capability of the head of state. I'd like to thank you for your support and joint work. In conclusion, and we are finalizing our work today, dear colleagues, we all in this current context have been working all the year in a special mode. The endemic problems are still there with us. They had been difficult and complicated before, and they had already created additional difficulties. With respect to those endemic issues over the past that we have had around over the past decades, but joining hands and joint work of our alliance aims to be able to most efficiently resolve these issues. I want to thank all of you for the praise and the assessment of our efforts in strengthening the BRICS interaction, but at the same time I want to note that had it not been for your support and help, had it not been for the support of Prime Minister Modi, President Xi Jinping, President Ramaphosa and President Bolsonaro, the Russian presidency wouldn't have managed to maintain the pace at the level that we really aimed at amid the coronavirus pandemic. I think that by and large, altogether, we have managed to do that. And I suggest we should approve now the Moscow declaration that reflects the overall assessments of the global situation. And it takes stock of the Russian presidency, outlines promising field of cooperation and long-term goals of our cooperation, as well as the priorities. We are to approve also two instruments, the counter-terrorism strategy and the updated strategy for economic partnership till 2025. Unless colleagues, distinguished colleagues, have any objections, I suggest we declare the documents, the instruments approved. Do we have any objections, gentlemen? No. Then thank you very much. I would also like to note that at the interagency level we have endorsed a big package of instruments and documents on BRICS cooperation. I'd like to thank the relevant agencies and ministries of our countries that worked hard to coordinate all these documents. Since January next year, India will take over the presidency. Our Indian friends, I'm sure, will definitely provide for the continuity of the BRICS operation, and they will enrich the cooperation between the BRICS countries with new interesting projects and ideas, and I'm sure that they will take into account all the ideas and suggestions expressed during this conference. I would wish every success to Prime Minister Modi, and I hope that our next summit will be held in a face-to-face, offline mode. We would be ready definitely to wholeheartedly assist our Indian partners. In closing, I'd like to thank all the colleagues for today's substantive discussion and for the joint work in the course of the year. If there is any point any one of you would like to raise, please speak up. If not, once again, I'd like to thank everybody for the joint work in the course of the year and during today's teleconference. See you soon. Thank you. Goodbye.